Jamahal Hill might be the saltiest fighter in UFC history. We're months on from his KO loss in the main event of UFC 300, yet he seemingly just can't let it go. Before his devastating defeat, Hill was a down-to-earth guy and someone fans were excited to watch fight. Now he just argues online with those same fans.
So I'm the best in the world at my job. In the world. Most of y'all ain't even, you can't even, when you win like employee of the month, some shit like that in a factory of a few hundred people, and you beat your chest, and you feel special, you feel walk around like you hold some type of ground.
So just how did Jamahal Hill become one of the most disliked, delusional, and saltiest fighters the UFC has ever seen? It all started after Hill's rapid climb up the UFC's light heavyweight rankings, where he beat the brakes off of Glover Teixeira to claim the title. In incredibly unfortunate circumstances, Jamahal injured himself whilst playing basketball at International Fight Week and was forced to vacate the belt.
As you know, recently I tore my Achilles. It was a complete rupture. It's a pretty serious injury. It's one that it's going to take rehab. It requires surgery, things like that. So, I just wanted to come back.
And in his absence, a new star at 205 pounds emerged from the shadows. Alex Pereira's ascension to the top of light heavyweight set up a huge fight between the new champ and the former champion Jamahal Hill, and their clash headlined the prestigious UFC 300 card. And whether the fact that the MMA community expected a bigger fight than Pereira versus Hill, people suggesting Hill was going to be outgunned or trying to sell more pay-per-views, the former champion turned his trash talking up a notch, and he was getting unanimous boos for it. Because before all of this, Jamahal Hill was a pretty cool fighter in most people's eyes. Sure, he talked a bit of trash, but he was seemingly humble as well, just like when he was caught on camera dancing with Paul Craig in a club just hours after the Scotsman handed him his first defeat. Unless you're Israel Adesanya and have an actual rivalry with Pereira, the Brazilian isn't the type to say too much in the lead up to a fight either. The biggest issue Hill had with Pereira was him saying he planned on getting through UFC 300 unscathed and then making a quick turnaround to headline UFC 301 just weeks later.
Very fast pace, roll 2 times, and now this will be opportunity with the cards being so close to each other for him to be able to defend now in the UFC 300 and maybe in Rio. And he said that is a very big possibility because the way that he does, if he doesn't get hurt, if he did this before in kickboxing, so everything going fine. Of course, anything can happen on a fight. He can get hurt. He can never predict. But everything going fine, there's a big chance that he'll try to defend the belt very fast.
But outside of this comment, Pereira doesn't say too much. So trash-talking him considering he doesn't even speak English at the press conferences seems kind of forced. It just felt as though Jamahal Hill couldn't deal with all that pre-fight noise from the fans, who claimed it was an easy fight for Pereira and lashed out.
What's mine? Do you still feel like that?
Yeah. I definitely. At first, I didn't really care, Chip. It was just me coming back to get what's mine. But just the talk, man.
That it seemed like it annoyed you.
Man. Yeah. It was. It wasn't the fact of people going for Alex. Like, I don't care. Big up him. He deserves the big ups. He is a legend. He's great. He's a phenomenal fighter. He's an extreme talent. But you can show respect and pay homage to somebody without disrespecting what somebody else has done. And at the end of the day, I am a world champion. So I don't think I was given the level of respect that came for that, or just the fact of I'm willing to go in there and fight these dudes.
He was fighting with the community on Twitter, calling UFC 300 an easy fight, and saying he'll even strike with Pereira.
I plan on going in there in where y'all think he's just this otherworldly guy because he did kickboxing and I didn't do kickboxing. This is a completely different sport. Kickboxing is kickboxing. MMA is MMA. I've been doing MMA for years. I've been bred in MMA. And whenever I do fight him, standing, I will knock him out. And when I do, I'm going to rub it in every single one of y'all face. I won't rub it in Alex's face because Alex is a Confederate. But every single one of y'all that has taught.
There's been a lot of noise recently from wrestlers claiming they're going to stand up with their opponents, who seemingly have a striking advantage. Even Ankalaev is saying he'll knock Pereira out, and Merab is saying he'll strike with Sean O'Malley.
Будет очень тяжело. Я думаю, он в скором времени почувствует это.
You know, I could have come out here today and wrestled against Johnny Walker. Could have taken him down right away and won with my ground and pound on the ground. But instead, I wanted to send a message. I wanted to stand up and I wanted to knock him out, and that's what I did. Now, for Glowa Teixeira, I have a message. Don't waste your time trying to teach your student how to wrestle or grapple. He's not going to need it. I'm going to come out there, I'm going to stand across from him, and I know that he's been knocked out before as a middleweight. So imagine what's going to happen if I meet him in light heavyweight. Trust me, he's not going to feel comfortable then.
Yeah, I have a wrestling, but now I want to prove my striking.
While both of them would be foolish to not use their wrestling, Jamahal Hill is primarily a striker. So for him to go into UFC 300 with the game plan of grappling is to accept Pereira has better striking. And clearly, that's something he and his team weren't willing to do, because when the fight rolled round, Hill was true to his word and decided to have a kickboxing bout with Pereira. But like those MMA fans predicted, it was a horrible decision for Jamahal Hill, because he fell straight into Alex Pereira's notorious left hook just 3 minutes into the fight.
Listen, Alex Pereira, I will never underestimate this man ever again. That was one of the cleanest shots. All right, he didn't knock him out cold, but that shovel uppercut, you're absolutely right, and a great description, by the way.
In almost everyone's eyes, Jamahal Hill simply came in with the wrong game plan and lost to the better man on the night. But just like how he couldn't deal with the doubters in the build-up, Hill couldn't accept he lost fair and square, and that just maybe, the fans were right about him not being able to strike with Pereira. So instead, Jamahal blamed the temporary pause for a groin shot for deciding the fight.
The ref yells, "Stop." I stopped completely. He then takes the angle and closes the distance in that, and then tells the ref, no, I'm good. Why'd you signal to the ref then in the first place? What was the point of you for signaling to the ref in that moment? If the kick didn't hit you low, you didn't want it stopped, but yet you grab low, you signal to the ref, you wanted to, so the ref could see it, let him know that you got kicked, but yet all of a sudden you don't want the fight to be stopped. I would have liked to have had a more clean and better reset. I think that would have been one thing I would have liked to see differently.
And in MMA, being a bad loser is one of the quickest ways to lose all your fans. But while Hill is blaming Herb Dean for allowing Pereira to get an advantage, or that he wasn't ready to fight, everyone can clearly see he's just straight up lying, and he lost his focus.
Before I ever looked at, what does Jamal do? And there is just a split instant where he looks away, and I think he might even make a okay, what? I felt like he even said something, and he comes back. And right as he comes back, and Alex was over here.
In fact, Hill throws a punch at the exact same time as Pereira's fight finishing left hook. And in an alternate universe, where Jamahal Hill's strike knocked out Pereira, there's no way he'd be claiming that he got a lucky advantage. But this is where things got weird. After a week or so of Hill claiming it was a fluke, arguing with people on Twitter and turning fans against him, you'd expect him to stop and put the whole drama behind him. But it's been months and he's still going. Hill reacted to a breakdown video by Demetrius Johnson 2 months after the fight, but Hill just couldn't accept a single criticism from Mighty Mouse.
He's still there. He's not retreating. He 1-2 right hand right there. Boom. Conor McGregor special right there. Right? That's what makes him so great.
All right. Now see right there, that's just cap. He's saying that he's not retreating. He's mastering and managing distance. All right. Part of that outside foot battle and foot positioning.
If Pereira landed a leg kick, Jamahal would claim it was checked. If Mighty Mouse said Pereira was being patient, Hill said he was timid. Essentially, whatever Demetrius said, Jamahal Hill would say the opposite. From his point of view, it sounds like he fought the absolute perfect fight. And who knows, maybe it's all part of Jamahal Hill's master plan to become the villain at light heavyweight and turn fans against him in a ploy to become more of a star, just like, say, Colby Covington tried. But it's probably more likely he just can't accept the loss, which is bizarre, because after losing to Paul Craig in devastating fashion and having his arm broken, he took it just fine.
The hardest thing that I ever had to eat in this game was whenever I lost my O to Paul Craig. When I was sitting there in that, and I was locked up in this match, in my arm, and I realized I could not use my arm, and I'm like, oh shit, I'm about to lose. I literally remember that feeling. I remember it very vividly, right? And that was a very, very hard thing for me. I went out and partied with this man that night. I enjoyed life after that.
Maybe it was due to the fact that he lost on the ground, which isn't his real forte, or because it wasn't as high profile as a title fight at UFC 300. But either way, Hill is still claiming Pereira got lucky, and is still adamant that it'll be an easy fight for him after he earns his rematch. And just 6 days after his KO loss, Jamahal Hill already had another fight booked, which shook the MMA world. UFC 300 and Hill's first ever knockout defeat came April 13th, 2024. And on April 19th, it was announced he'd be fighting Khalil Rountree Jr. at UFC 303, which was going down at the end of June. A lot of people immediately thought the rapid turnaround was a bad idea.
Either way, the comments are mixed. Some of them don't like that he's turning around too fast. Some of them like the fact that he is turning around this fast. And I'll be honest with you.
After all, it wasn't long ago that MMA fans saw Alexander Volkanovski make a 4-month turnaround after his KO loss to Islam Makhachev, only to get knocked out again by Ilia Topuria. Now, the knockout wasn't as bad in Jamahal Hill's case, but he'd only have just over 2 months. And Khalil Rountree is not the guy to go in the octagon with if people are suspecting your chin hasn't fully recovered from your previous fight. But it just adds fuel to the fire that Jamahal Hill was still salty about the loss to Pereira, and felt as though he had to get back in the win column as soon as possible, and to try to earn that rematch.
And then there's the TKO finish, which is what you had. Does that kind of annoy you that people are kind of writing this as like, oh my God, like how could he come back after that?
No, I expect people to not be sensible and know what the fuck they're talking about.
Okay, fair enough.
Because for Hill and his team, accepting a super short notice fight against Rountree just weeks after being knocked out isn't a wise decision. The fight never came to fruition though, as first Rountree pulled out, and then Hill had injury issues of his own and withdrew from UFC 303. Who knows? Maybe Jamahal would have won, or maybe it was a blessing in disguise. But with all the turmoil going on around UFC 303, the UFC turned to one man to save the day, none other than Jamahal Hill's archenemy.
Conor McGregor is out of 303 versus Michael Chandler with an injury. The new main event is Alex Pereira, and he is facing former UFC light heavyweight champion Yuri Prohaska.
But Hill essentially claimed he was over it, he didn't care, and that the fans didn't understand what salty means.
There's been a huge narrative that's been pushed around the fact that I'm jealous, I'm like a hater, or I'm like salty. And it's like this narrative kind of came out like last year whenever Alex started to get his wins in the 205 division, which is a strange concept to me, seeing as how I willingly gave up the title for this type of motion and this type of movement to be happening. All right, last year when I made the decision, although it was a hard decision for me to do, for me to vacate the title and give it up, that was under full aware and the knowledge that he was coming to the weight class, that we had a lot of opportunity. For me to be considered a hater or salty because of that, to me is insane, and partially makes me think people kind of don't understand the term of what salty means.
And just like he predicted, Pereira made the quick turnaround and had yet another flawless victory against Yuri Prohaska. But yet again, Hill was still talking about his fight with Pereira and believing he was doing good work before he got caught.
I took no damage. Most of the fall was me falling down. I remember everything. I remember looking up, seeing his legs. I remember him coming in, trying to block, trying to reach for the underhook. He's able to land some shots and kind of throw my equilibrium off on the other side, but I was coherent the whole time, throughout and through for the most part. You know, the only fight that I won at this point, I want to get back to that fight so I can finish on that what I was showing.
It's been months since the two fought, and despite Jamal posting on YouTube with his supposed final take on the fight on June 27th, this probably won't be the last we hear about it. Until he recaptures the title, or gets a rematch with Pereira, Hill may just continue to be one of the most salty fighters in the entire roster. And although he's doing everything to make fans dislike him, someone else is pretty good at giving fans what they want. So check out my deep dive on how Mike Perry went from a fan favorite UFC fighter to the face of bare knuckle boxing and a fight with Jake Paul.